What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. Go over some of the data points, what's influencing it today, and the latest in partnership rumors. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is down 0.79%, 246 the low, 257 the high. So straight out the gate, it did have some pretty good momentum. Unfortunately, the market had other plans for it. So a couple data points that did come out that's somewhat spooking the market. We did have job quits, job openings, and just generally the consumer confidence, all of which arguably aren't all that great. So it does signal a little bit more of a slowing, and of course the market doesn't like that whatsoever. At the same time, you also did have Bessent come out and kind of give some tariff updates, and I feel like the market was really under the impression that this week there was going to be some progress between China and the States, and didn't really sound like anything like that was coming. Rather, the only country that there might be some deal this week is with India, but in my opinion, I don't think that the market will overly care because of that. I think India is just trying to rush just to get outside of under the umbrella of China for the most part. But aside from that, though, there was some updates that just came out roughly like 30 minutes ago. And so it is associated to US auto tariffs. So all cars that are finished in the US that have a 85% domestic content will have no tariffs. So that's kind of a good thing. I think Lucid was very close to 100. Clearly there was some potential issues. That's what caused a little bit of a supply chain issue momentarily in the short term with the Gravity, but nonetheless this should be a pretty good thing. And then aside from that, though, it looks like a lot of the tariff reliefs are going to be phased in over a 3-year period. So that's going to allow automakers to produce supply chains in the US. So at the end of the day, I think that's good. Lucid already had that nice advantage because of that. So I think a lot of these auto tariffs being loosened-ish is going to help others, not really Lucid all that much, but still nonetheless, though, I think that's a good thing for the States overall. But there was one thing that did come out, and that is this right here. So Blacklane to launch demand service in Saudi next month. So through AMP2, there's a hell of a lot of deals. Like I said, I think AMP2 is going to far exceed just production amount of agreements than AMP1. Like Lucid is going to be very reliant on them going forward, because yes, even though Lucid does essentially qualify for a lot of these kind of benefits under the tariff, it's still like Canadians won't really buy any American product through that, because Canadians will get hit because Canada has imposed a tariff on American autos. So at the end of the day, AMP2 is going to be the very big deal for Lucid, as they'll be able to kind of distribute for the most part around the world, and even to Canada at a cheaper price than what AMP1 can do. I've already done a video all about that, but based on this, I think this is going to be the next big partnership for Lucid. And there was this video that was posted, so you can see it on Lucid Motor News. 32 seconds, nothing crazy. But even though Lucid itself hasn't come out and done anything, clearly you can see a signing between Mark and some individual from Blacklane. So it's good, just we haven't really heard anything. But with Lucid's the proximity to their earnings, it is fair to assume that there is going to be announced probably the day of their earnings, or shortly around that time period. So yeah, I think this is going to be a good thing, gets more visibility for Lucid, and that's exactly what they want, right? That's what Mark's vision is, that ultimately you're going to have better marketing and stuff like that. But aside from that, shorts are returning 1.88 million shares. So by them returning shares today, it does somewhat kind of show that today's pullback is unjustified. That's obviously reading between the lines, but 29.26% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 355.59 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow minimum is negative, so that does mean that there is a broker out there physically paying people to short Lucid. So some signs of manipulation, and of course I guess we can kind of look at some of the recent ratings, negative ratings, just to kind of see who that could potentially be. But beside the point, that is negative 0.22. That's an annual rate, not a daily rate, so it kind of works out to be pennies anyways, but I think it's still the purpose behind it. But looking at the options, 286,000 in calls, 916 in puts. So kind of low dollar value today, but 46% of all the options being done today are bearish in nature. And I think they're just maybe fearful. Some entities are fearful over a lot of the data points. So yesterday we had the market freak out over the Dallas Fed manufacturing index, when in reality, like, it was normally, it shouldn't have been that big of a deal, but market kind of took it and ran with it. Same with today. Tomorrow we have GDP, PCE, and then ISM manufacturing, non-farm payroll, unemployment. So a lot of opportunity for the market to continue to freak out over. So maybe that's what some entities are kind of hedging, just more volatile times ahead. Based on the bulls, you are seeing a consensus for it to be roughly around that 250 mark for this week, and then for next week, which would encumber their earnings, roughly around 350. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 250 this week. So obviously with us at 250 right now, it is a little bit more upside is anticipated. You're not really seeing that level of buying the dip type of stuff happening right now. So you do have, like I said, shorts returning. So that's adding some buying pressure, as well as algorithmic trading. But so far, 2 transactions on the secondary market, both sells, one for 136, other one for 775. Dark pool is a little bit more popular though. So you can kind of see right here, 1.4, 1.4, and a third one. So a lot of money is getting in through the dark pool, and that seems to be pretty much it. So the frequency isn't really there, but it does go to show that at least big money is paying attention to Lucid. With it right now at 251, trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 233 is going to be a strong support, hasn't been touched in a while, so that's kind of a good thing. Flip side, 255 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. No new analyst ratings for today. Most likely a lot of them are just waiting for Lucid's upcoming earnings, and as you can kind of see, that is slated for May the 6th. But on the actual chart itself, so it is above currently that 50-day moving average, and that is sitting at $2.42. So generally a good sign. The fact that it's staying above that does mean more of a push higher. I think it just needs more of a confirmed like bullish stance on a macro standpoint. And so right now it's just kind of wedge bound between the 50 and 100-day moving averages. 100 is sitting at $2.63, 50 at $2.42, like I said. So I think, like I said, possibly with their upcoming earnings, that could be the next big catalyst to really push it higher, or possibly them officially announcing that Blacklane partnership, because I don't see anything on social media about that. I don't see Lucid talking about it, when clearly, as you can see based on this video, Lucid, Blacklane, like, I don't think that this would be just created for the hell of it. Like, there is more to it than that. I just don't know the extent of it. So maybe there might be a fairly large order linked to those two. So Blacklane might be ordering X amount from Lucid, maybe, I don't know, 2,000 or possibly even more. And even when it comes down to that, this upcoming earnings, hopefully we find out kind of because it is getting close to the due date for the most part, Lucid fulfilling the 50,000 to the Saudi government and entities. And so I think that should be also a good kind of future guidance update that Lucid does give. But aside from that though, I think it's just Lucid's technicals are still hanging on, so not really all that negative. Let me know your general thoughts though. Are you bullish on Lucid? Are you bearish going into this upcoming earnings? What's your viewpoint potentially on this latest partnership? And when it comes to the tariffs, do you think that's a good thing, bad thing, all these recent updates? I think it's, like I said, good for other automakers that didn't necessarily qualify previously, but I think just given Lucid's pre-existing, because Lucid already was planning this before this was even announced, so I think they have a head start on all this. So they've hopefully kind of organized all the supply chain agreements, with exception of whatever's causing that issue currently with the Gravity. So yeah, I don't know. What's your stance on all that? One final thing, pop over to my Discord, completely free. A lot of good people talking about stocks, options, crypto, basically everything that you ever need. So with all that said, appreciate all of you watching.